An American Idol singer passes out shocking Katy Perry, Ellen DeGeneres loses 1 million viewers, and an MMA fighter shocks a crowd after a big win. All of that and a lot more, but first if you could please do us a big favor and smash that like button, we would really appreciate it. With that out of the way, let's begin the InformOverload weekly roundup. So first things first, let's begin with this story surrounding the Ellen DeGeneres show losing about 1 million viewers following another apology from the disgraced host. When COVID shut down the world, it also threw the Ellen show into a downward spiral. Following a controversy of the host replacing her staff with different people for filming at home, a Twitter thread started to call Ellen out for past behavior. Mainly, she was being accused of fostering a toxic workplace that resulted in months of more and more troubling details being exposed about what happened behind the scenes. Once she returned from a summer hiatus, though, she opened the show with an apology. Ellen said, "As you may have heard, this summer there were allegations of a toxic work environment on our show, and then there was an investigation. I learned that things happened here that never should have happened. I take that very seriously, and I want to say that I am so sorry to the people who were affected." Many people tuned in for this initial apology and to finally hear the host break her silence on the matter. However, since that time, the Ellen show has lost over 1 million viewers. According to data from Nielsen, they are down at an average of 1.5 million in the last 6 months compared to the 2.6 million viewers at the same time last year. That is a 43% decline, which immediately takes her show out of the same conversation as shows like Dr. Phil and Live with Kelly and Ryan, which both shows average 2.5 million views. Ellen's ratings are now essentially the equivalent to Steve Wilkos, who was Jerry Springer's former security guard that got his own TV show. So if you were looking to hear back about a comeuppance for Ellen, here it is, folks. But with that though, let's send it over to Jared for sports and science. Sorry, sports and science!
Thanks, Johnny. I'm just gonna pop in quick to talk about some wild news in the sports world. And speaking of popping, Polish MMA fighter Damian Janikowski decided to pop his dislocated finger back into place after securing a knockout in the second round of his fight on March 20th. The middleweight, who won bronze at the Olympics for wrestling a while back, took on Jason Radcliffe, and after the knockout, it seems Damian wasn't done putting on a show. Given that when you fight in the cage, odds are you got so much adrenaline pumping, you could probably lift a truck, it seems at first Damian didn't even realize his finger was crooked. And then he held it up for all the spectators to see, holding his hand and dislocated finger up, while he turned around the octagon. He was kind of like, it looked like almost this. He was like, look at my finger. But you see how it's at an angle, kind of? You guys probably, anyways. And then, with quite literally the slap of his hand, he popped it back in. It's pretty gnarly, to be honest, guys. The video quickly started to make the rounds on Twitter, with some wondering if this man is even human, which I think so. He's nails, but he's still human. But in a sense, he was just like, dislocated, boop. Now it's, again, like when I tell you the slap was literally, and he fixed it, gut-wrenching. Love it. Alright guys, now the real reason you're all here, it's time for some science! Alright, so a team of scientists from Arizona State University have presented evidence that suggests there may be a planet inside of Earth. We're not talking like Atlantis in the ocean, we're talking a completely new planet inside the core of Earth. So what's really going on here? Well, it's been a very common conclusion among the scientific community that when Earth was just a baby planet about 4.5 billion years ago or so, not that long ago, a protoplanet named Theia collided with Earth and created the moon. The rest of it potentially lays within the core of the Earth, or so one PhD student thinks. Chen Yuan is studying at Arizona State University, specifically seismology, and discussed his hypothesis at the Lunar and Planetary Science Conference, which has gotten some other people thinking. For those of you unaware, there are 2 layers of rock, the size of entire continents, that sit under West Africa and the Pacific Ocean. We're talking about 1,000 kilometers in height and thousands more wide. They're attached to the Earth's core, which further pushes the narrative that this has to be that protoplanet. But there's much more to it than just that. They're referred to as large low shear velocity provinces, LLSVPs, and considering how they slow down seismic waves from earthquakes, it leads professionals to believe they are denser and form differently when compared to other mantle rocks surrounding them. With the evidence provided by Jan, although he isn't certain about his findings, he explained that, quote, "This crazy idea is at least possible." And it seems he's not the only one with that belief, as seismologist Edward Garnero explained, given the newly presented evidence, I quote, "I think it's completely viable until someone tells me it's not." On top of this, Stephen Desch, an astrophysicist who worked with Jan on the study, has found previous evidence suggesting Theia was potentially as big as Earth and incredibly dry, leading some to believe it would have separated into layers about 2 to 3.5% denser than Earth. With this in mind, Yuan explained if this was true, I quote, "The Theia mantle materials to sink to the Earth's lowermost mantle and accumulate into thermochemical piles that may cause the seismically observed LLSVPs, and that, my friends, is science." Back to Johnny.
Thanks for those updates, Jared. Now let's move on to some feel-good news, shall we? Now the reason for this young man's heroic actions are certainly troubling and traumatic, but I would be remiss if we didn't call some attention to the absolute bravery that he showed. A 20-year-old barista by the name of Logan Ezra Smith is our hero and feel-good news story of the week because he put himself in harm's way to save others, and I think that's worth celebrating. Logan was working at the King Super Starbucks kiosk in Colorado when a customer alerted him that there was an active shooter in the parking lot. After seeing the gunman outside, Smith acted quickly. He rushed back in, called 911, and made sure to protect his 69-year-old colleague at the same time. Thankfully, he was able to hide the elderly woman beneath the counter, concealing her from view with the trash cans. Logan then assisted several other customers through the west entrance so that they could escape. With time running out though, he rushed back and hid himself behind another bin in the kiosk, which is extremely difficult because this dude is tall. He's like 6'4", I think he said. Smith tells CNN, "Maybe it's who I am, but as a grocery store employee, customers come first for me. It's customers and my coworkers. I was willing to sacrifice myself, and death was something I accepted already. My belief is she's older than me, she's my elder, so I must protect her." So far, the alleged attacker has been identified as 21-year-old Ahmad Elisa, and he has been charged with 10 counts of first-degree murder following the mass shooting. I also just want to say to Boulder, Colorado, that the world loves you, and we wish you nothing but healing and peace during this very traumatic time. With that though, let's send it over to the Spill Zone with Mackenzie for our lead story.
Thanks, Johnny. So if you guys haven't been keeping up with American Idol, I'm going to fill you in on the shocking events that took place last episode. Hollywood Week on American Idol comes with lots of ups and downs for contestants as well as viewers, and it's known as one of the most grueling times on the whole show. And last Sunday's episode might have been one of the most shocking ever. In the episode, the contestants were put into pairs for their duet round, and usually drama between the pairs ensues, classic reality TV stuff. However, for Rhonda Felton and Funky Lagoki, their pairing was a blessing, and the women leaned on each other through the mentally draining process. Funky even tried to help Rhonda to overcome some of her insecurities on stage so they could have the best performance possible. The duo performed Tell Him, a duet by Barbra Streisand and Celine Dion. However, their performance was not what the judges expected, and judges Katy Perry and Lionel Richie both spoke of how they were let down by their performances. However, we were not sure which of the women, if not both, would be asked to leave the show. But then something very unexpected happened. As Richie was critiquing the pair and honestly being like a little harsh with his critiques, but I guess that's what he's paid for, Funky Lagoki fainted, falling hard right on her face. Everyone present was horrified and quickly brought help. Luke Bryan explained to the medics that Lagoki had, quote, busted her chin. She was then brought out in a stretcher. The show later explained that she was treated for dehydration but was released. After the shocking fall, Richie told her duet partner, Felton, that they had both made it through to the next round, even though it seemed like one of them was bound to go home. Many fans took to Twitter to express their shock over the event, while some also stated their theories that Lionel Richie kept the pair on the show just because of that shocking event. We will never know what he was going to deliberate, but I am excited to see Felton feeling better on next week's episode. Back to you, Johnny.
Thanks so much for those updates, Mackenzie. Well, folks, that has been today's show, but before we get out of here, let's check out some of your comments from our last weekly roundup. No Cause says, David Dobrik's apology is basically a slightly modified one from his previous ones. This shows he's not sorry at all. Yeah, it certainly felt like a copy pasta apology. Shout out to the people who know what that is. Actually, spam that like button right now in the chat if you know what copy pasta is. Ivana J says, science, baby, is the best part. It certainly is. We all love Jared and his science. Shannon says, taking a shot for every time Jared says science. You might want to slow down there. Maybe every other one. NBC says, I worked in the middle school Ryan went to. My mom was his middle school administrator and I was friends with his teacher. This made my ears perk up. Oh, I'm so happy then that we could share a story that a lot of people actually know the person in the story. It's very rare when that happens. Clueless Valley Girl says, Ryan was so cute. That story made my day. I wish him the best of luck and I know he will be super successful. And by the way, I love how much fun you guys are having. We certainly have lots of fun here on the IO team. And yeah, again, big shout out to Ryan. I hope he has tons of success in the field that he wishes to go into. It's great that so many companies were willing to reach out to him. But for now, that has been today's show. Big thanks to Jared Bronstein, Mackenzie Smith, and our editing god, Daniela. I've been your host, Johnny Rogers, and until next time, stay classy, YouTube. It's the weekly roundup. He takes her show out of the same conversation. Let's try that again.
Great. Johnny wears his suit, and I'm just showing up in the gym attire, you know? So I'm talking about sports and science. I gotta commit to one or the other. And if I'm not wearing a lab coat, I'm wearing the gym shit. Maybe next time I'll wear a lab coat. I don't know. Anyways, it's time for some science! They're gonna kill me. Got no idea what the I just said.
Thanks so much for... One more time.
Oh my god. Oh, okay. Of course when I start there's like crap in my eye. Alright.